So the unblemished finish streak, not just win streak, but finish streak, is continuing for Shavkat Rakhmonov. Obviously got a beautiful submission of Stephen Wonderboy Thompson last night. Tough to see for Thompson because he's 40 years old. He was really hoping to make one last run for the title, but unfortunately it's just not in the cards for him. Still a lot of fun stuff if he wants to stick around for a little while. There's some fun matchups, but the night certainly was Shavkat's. And one thing that was interesting to me is he kind of let us in on a little secret after the fight, which is that his ankle was in really bad shape and he actually needs surgery, but he didn't want to pull out of the fight, so he went through with it. But I think that kind of gives us a little insight as to why he fought the way he fought. We kind of thought that he might keep that kickboxing distance at least for a small amount of time and test his luck striking against Wonderboy before he ultimately closed the distance and do what he does best, which is get you to the ground, get you against the cage, get you down on the ground, work his submissions, ground and pound finish, sort of rinse and repeat. But he was very quick to close the distance on Thompson last night and really kind of had one singular motive in mind, which was to get him down and to submit him. And that's probably because when you have an ankle that you can't throw a kick with, you don't want to be kickboxing with the Wonderboy. And so certainly understand that there. So I want to talk about the performance, but also, where he lines up next, because if he does have to have surgery, the champion Leon Edwards looked unblemished against Colby Covington, and Belal Muhammad will probably step in and fight him because they're sort of on the same schedule, having Muhammad weigh in at the fight for this past weekend. So if he's going to have surgery, does he come back sort of midway through next year? What does a matchup look like? Sean Brady's back on track. He just had an incredible win. What did you make of Shavkat's performance, and what do you think he does in the next 6 months or so?
Well, I think Shavkat is an absolute gangster. If you go in there needing surgery on your ankle against arguably one of the best strikers your division has ever seen, that just speaks volumes to how game you actually are as a fighter. And personally, I was watching the live stream and we were watching the fights, and I'm thinking, man, I really wish Shavkat would test himself in the striking realm a little bit more, just so we can see how it is. Not only for the fans, but for himself. It can do a lot of good for you as far as the perspective from your future opponents. If you can go out there and outstrike Wonderboy, if you can go out there and even have him second guessing when you're kicking with him and stuff like that. And so that's why when we were watching the fights, I was like, man, I really wish he would go out there and strike with Wonderboy just a little bit. We know he can likely put him against the cage, drag him to the floor, and then choke him out. Let's see him do it better, do striking better than Wonderboy. And now it makes total sense why he didn't do that. And I totally agree with that game plan. Look, if you've got an ankle that needs surgery, that's a whole lot worse than Ian Gary having a tummy ache or his, whatever it is going on with his girlfriend and her boyfriend. If that's the kind of stuff that's affecting you and it's pulling you out of fights, and then you've got a guy who's got an even better record than you, he's even more undefeated than you and has a 100% finishing rate, who's willing to take a fight with a broken ankle, then that clearly makes him like the number one contender to me. And I know that timing is very important when it comes to title shots, but Belal Muhammad, while he deserves it and he will likely get the next title shot, in my opinion, hasn't had a performance like Shavkat had last night. You look at his entire career, he's never had a fight that didn't get finished by him. He's completely undefeated, 100% finishing rate. And then he goes out there with a broken ankle and a foot that needs surgery and beats Wonderboy Thompson, a guy who's given everybody trouble forever. And oh, by the way, has never been submitted before. And he gets submitted by Shavkat. And to be honest, I thought Shavkat was going to go out there and show us a full gamut of mixed martial arts. But the fact that he goes in there injured and takes the fight exactly where he needs to do it shows you just how dominant he is, even when he's fighting off a handicap. That's why I really do think that Shavkat deserves the next title fight. But Leon Edwards is the champ. The champ should get what he wants. He said he wants to be active, and unfortunately, it looks like Shavkat's going to need to have surgery. In my opinion, he doesn't need to do any more fighting to get a title shot, but as the UFC works, it's all a very what have you done for me lately type of business. And if Shavkat doesn't fight for 6 months, people are likely going to start to forget a little bit, and then they're going to have him reinsert himself in the top mix. I don't see anybody really posing much threats to Shavkat, and I see him being a future world champion. I just wish he didn't have to wait a few months to go get his ankle dealt with.
Yeah, it certainly seems like he's going to have to heal up. He'll have probably, 2 to 3 months worth of recovery before he can even get back into full-time training.
Right.
And so, Leon wanting to be active, I think we should definitely give the champ what he wants. Belal Muhammad has a case to be made that, hey, I got my eye poked when I was fighting the guy and I couldn't continue. It was a no contest. It was a blemish, a slight interruption in Leon's otherwise perfectly unbeaten streak. So if those two are both fresh and they want to both get it on early next year, let them do it while Shavkat heals up. And as you said, if Leon wants to really be active, because I do see Leon beating Belal if they make that fight. I think that Leon's a way better fighter now than he was when he fought Belal the first time. Not saying that Belal is not, but I think that Leon's probably made more improvement than just about anybody in the sport right now. So let them go ahead and handle their business. And then if Shavkat wants to get in there somewhere midway through next year, that's great. If they want to make Shavkat win one more fight before he gets in there, you've got a Sean Brady who just came back and looked fantastic. He took some time off after his loss, so maybe you get the two of them in there together. They're, I think, 1 or 2 apart in the rankings, so that would make sense. And then you get the winner of that fight in there with Leon Edwards next. But all in all, for Shavkat Rakhmonov, I think a truly stellar performance, especially given the circumstances of the severe injury, and it totally makes sense why he fought the way he fought. Credit to him. It was a smart game plan. And submitting Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is not an easy feat. A lot of people think Wonderboy always just this karate guy, but if you get him down, you can have your way with him. Well, not so fast. Wonderboy's 40 years old. He's been doing this a long time, and not a single man that competes in MMA has ever submitted the Wonderboy until last night. So I think we can't just brush over how impressive submitting Stephen Thompson is, even though he's the karate kid. Make no mistake, his grappling defense is excellent. He showed that in the first round with some good takedown defense, and submitting him is no easy feat.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Shavkat had to work for those takedowns. I mean, he was really grinding Wonderboy out up against the cage. And then when he got him to the ground, none of it was boring. It's just, I was hoping to see some striking. Now, in hindsight, now that I know what I know, and he didn't let us in on the ankle thing until after the fight, it makes total sense. I would never go out there and try to strike with Wonderboy if you've got one leg. And while some people might say, well, if he's got one leg that's hurt, why doesn't he just kick with the other one? And he's got 2 arms. Those have nothing to do with your ankle. Why don't you throw some punches? It's very different. Your legs take you where you need to go, and the hands get all the credit, the feet do all the work. So even when you're punching with somebody, the legs are what are doing all the work. And for Shavkat Rakhmonov, he couldn't risk it. He couldn't, if maybe he can't twist up on his foot that well. Maybe the ball of his foot is where he's generating a lot of his power. And if he's not able to twist up off of his heel, or, even if he plants the bad foot and kicks with the good one, that could actually cause more pain in your ankle than actually just sending the injured foot. So it was a very smart play for him. I love that they kept it under wraps. This is fighting. And anytime you hear a fighter say, I feel 100% going into this fight, that's incorrect.
A lie.
It's a lie. It's incorrect. There's no fighter on the planet right now that sits today, December 17th, 2023, that is an active fighter that's 100% right now. Everybody's got a bunch of injuries going on at all times. And if you get sick during fight week, that's very normal. If you've got an ankle that's hurt, you know what, you deal with it, or you either deal with it outside of camp, or you deal with it and let the UFC know about it, or you hide that injury. This is what a lot of fighters do. They keep those injuries under wraps, and then after the fight happens, they let the UFC know, hey, I injured myself during the fight, so you're going to have to pay for this.
Rolled my ankle in there, man. Don't you hate when that happens?
Exactly.
This didn't happen in the 12 weeks leading up to it. It happened in the cage, I can assure you.
Right. So Shavkat, I think the UFC should definitely help him take care of that ankle surgery, get him back ready, because Shavkat Rakhmonov has champion written all over him. I can't wait to see him in there, and I believe his next fight